Well, Vice President Dr. Bawumia has also been defending government's management of the economy. And I was just talking about it with Dr. Bain there. He's been putting a spotlight on the exchange rate. According to him, government has a better exchange rate than the erstwhile John Mahama administration. We'll hear from him shortly. But my colleague Kojo Yankson, who was there today for us, joins me in the studio for some analysis as we go through what has been said today at the program. Kojo, it's good to see you.
It's great to see you too.
Okay, we'll talk about your answer, your question and the answer that you got to it momentarily. But then let's focus our discussions on the city for now.
Yeah.
What really did they say about the city? They've been hammering on the fact that the rate of depreciation has been better, but at the end of the day, people say we're not feeling it in our pocket. All we know is that the value of the cedi, of the dollar, has just shot up against the cedi. Explain to us further what they said.
Well, today was important because what the Vice President sought to do was he sought to give us information that we have never had before about the reason why this year the cedi struggled, and we saw that very fast depreciation. It's all because of the IMF. Now, he explained in simple terms that the IMF wasn't really that motivated to have Ghana leave the program.
Okay.
For whatever reason, we don't know. Maybe they were concerned that we might not be able to maintain fiscal discipline in an election year. Yeah. But either way, they were hoping that they could find a way of having this program extended. So immediately at the beginning of this year, they brought what they call preconditions, 7 preconditions, and said, Ghana, you must meet these conditions, otherwise you cannot exit.
And that was the reason why the cedi struggled?
Well, that was it, because what they did was, these 7 preconditions, one of them was that as a country, we cannot touch our gross international reserves. Okay. Now, whenever you want to manage the value of your currency, that's what you tap on. Your international reserves, to make sure that there are dollars in the system, to control the supply of it, so that the demand doesn't overtake it for the value of your cedi to go down. That's what we've been doing. The IMF suddenly said, you can't do that. In fact, not only can you not touch it, but you must return your reserves or keep your reserves at the level they were in December. Okay. Now, as you know, every economy struggles in January. You know, all the beginning of the year pressures come to bear, and you need those reserves in order to cushion some of these pressures. But in this case,
we're unable to go for it, even though we need it.
Because of these 7 preconditions. Okay. So this is the main thing that affected the cedi. Okay, but of course, what he is saying is that they couldn't make this point at the time, because obviously they were under an IMF program, but they knew what was coming. That's why they stayed calm, and now you can see that the cedi has started to regain some of its value.
We can hear the Vice President on that now.
The start of 2019 has been characterized by another sudden sharp depreciation of the cedi, which was largely been reversed. Within a week, the cedi went up close to 5.9 to the dollar, and then it retreated back to about 5.07. and even was threatening to go below 5. But this is really an unprecedented development. That you don't normally see such a retreat when the exchange rate depreciates. And this was also, and you see within, in the next graph, when we look at the cedi-dollar exchange rate, that you will see that in this period when there was a reversal in the cedi depreciation, the Bank of Ghana had not intervened in the market. In fact, if you look at it as at the end of March 2019, the cedi has depreciated by about 5.18% so far this year. But we have to understand how come we saw this sort of movement in the exchange rate at the beginning of the year, a few weeks ago. What happened? Why did it jump so far? Many, many reasons have been given, but let me tell you what happened. The most important and the proximate cause of the recent depreciation is the time inconsistency of an IMF prior action on the reserves target. At the end of January, as part of the 7 prior actions, to get to the IMF board and the completion of the IMF program, the IMF gave Ghana 7 actions to complete before March 15. 7 prior actions that we had to meet. 7 conditions. One of the conditions that the Bank of Ghana had to meet was to increase its net international reserves to the level of December 2018. To increase the net international reserves, however, meant that the Bank of Ghana could not sell any foreign exchange in the market. They had to essentially hold their hands to the back and could not intervene on the market during this particular period. So demand for foreign currency was not met by supply as normally happens on a day-to-day basis. And we know when the demand is greater than the supply or the supply is not coming, the price will go up. And this is exactly what was happening.
Dr. Bawumia there at the town hall that they organized today. Kojo Yangsing, my colleague, is still here with me in the studio. He was there. Kojo, he did not just talk about the cedi's depreciation, but he also spoke about the fundamentals, which he's well known for. What did he say about it vis-a-vis what he has said before, that if the fundamentals are weak, it will expose you?
This is fascinating. Like you said, he's known for this. He made that point, you know, in the run-up to the election. Yeah. So, of course, all this time the cedi has been struggling. People have been quoting this back to him. Yeah. So he decided today is the day to explain himself. Right. Let's just listen to what he said with a very interesting analogy using a broken leg.
Okay.
You will recall that I stated in 2014 that if the fundamentals are weak, the exchange rate will expose you. That was true then. That was true then, and it is true now. It is 100% correct. So if the fundamentals are weak, the exchange rate will expose you. But it is warped logic to jump from that to a conclusion that if there is depreciation in your currency, then the fundamentals must be weak. Do you understand the logic? It is very warped logic. If the fundamentals are weak, the exchange rate will expose you. But if the exchange rate moves, you cannot jump to that conclusion that the fundamentals are weak. That defies logic. That defies logic. There could be other external factors causing the exchange rate depreciation. The exchange rate depreciated by 31.3%. The fiscal deficit was 10.1% of GDP. The public debt rose to 70.2% of GDP. Inflation rose to 17%. And GDP growth had declined from 7.3% to 4%. In other words, the economic fundamentals had weakened significantly, and therefore the depreciation was easily explainable. It was not caused by dwarfs or high-rise buildings, as we were told. The exchange rate in 2014 had exposed the weak economic fundamentals.
I believe that it makes sense to you because it is self-explanatory, as he does break it down further for you to understand, not caused by dwarfs or high-rise buildings. Interesting there, Kojo. But let's wrap up with the entire program and how it went down today. Which other highlights can you take us through before we wrap it all up?
Well, I think the question and answer was very interesting. It was a good move by the economic management team to put themselves before the people in that way. Of course, a lot of the questions weren't really questions, people just saying thank you and so forth.
And that's quite curious, isn't it? I mean, a town hall, usually you'd have people who would come and tell you exactly how they feel, but you have someone say, for example, from the Makwala women who said, I have a lot of questions, but those questions have been answered. Yeah. Well, then you shouldn't have asked any questions.
Yeah, well, yeah, she wanted to thank them, you know, and I think you will always get people like that who are there, you know, simply to show support rather than to challenge or question.
Right.
But we did have some very good questions as well from members of the public. The media, they didn't want it to be about the media today.
Yeah.
So we weren't really given much of a platform.
Sense. Fair enough.
And well,
you had a question. Were you satisfied with the answer that you got?
I'm not sure I was answered, to be honest, because I wanted to know why nobody had been, prosecuted or arrested for, the collapse of
the
these
amount
banks.
of money that we put in.
Yeah, but I didn't get an answer to that. No.
Fair enough, Kojo. There was I mean, a number of applauses in there as well. I mean, quite interesting for a town hall, because you hardly won't get that unless it's some way choreographed. Did you get that sense when you were there?
Well, sitting in the middle of the crowd, I did realize that applause tended to rise at very strange moments when there hadn't really been anything applause-worthy said. It just appeared as if people were going with the mood of the speaker rather than the words he was saying, and just thinking, oh, looks like he said something.
This sounds nice.
Yeah, but you know what? That is also not a surprise.
But again, people have said, and if you follow the conversation on social media, people have said that, well, the town hall was really packed by members of the NPP and members of government, and so you would expect that to happen.
Well, the event was by invitation. So you have to ask, who did they invite?
Who did they invite? Who did they invite? Well, the bottom line is they're trying to explain to you why the economy is what it is and why the city's performance is what it is. Kojo, thank you very much for helping us with those details. Kojo Yangsin there, my colleague who was at the program for us. Indeed, he has the question, and he's been helping us with a highlight of that. Well,